We really wanted to look at the role that technology plays in producing better performing buildings, greener buildings. And it was fascinating, therefore, that the group who presented before us decided to tell us that technology is just too complex and it's not so important. That was a bonus for us to be able to demonstrate that we can't arrive at 21st century construction without technology. And each of the panelists in different ways looked at that. I looked specifically at the manufactured construction piece and the way that we can reduce the carbon footprint of our buildings. We can speed up project schedules through manufactured construction. We get smarter results if we use manufactured construction. That was just one of the aspects that the panel looked at. We say at DIRTT that nobody's going to sustain ugly green architecture, and we feel really strongly about this. I used some of those surveys as evidence. For instance, when you look at what occupants in green buildings have to say when nobody's over their shoulder checking their answer, and they tell us that they find these buildings inhospitable, that aesthetically they're unpleasant to be in, that they don't enjoy thermal comfort and they can't control their environment. It's really critical from the perspective of adopting green building right across the board, that we start to get these pieces right in terms of making occupants comfortable in the buildings that they inhabit. The idea that we don't want buildings just to perform better individually. Ideally, they're going to start reporting back their performance into the electrical grid, a smart grid, as he said. And then the smart grid can also come back to buildings and literally tell them to diminish their consumption at particular times. So if the grid is going into a peak time in terms of energy usage, feedback would then tell the various mechanical systems in buildings, okay, scale back. That's fascinating. We're not there yet. The kind of data we get has to do with occupant choices and how we design for occupant choices and a much faster construction schedule. In the case of, for instance, Hazel Rempel, who spoke to Nedco Systems, she was looking at how do we, first of all, measure so that we can manage, and then how can our results, that data, feed back into the grid and influence the behavior of other buildings as well. I'm reminded of the example of Regen Energy, which is a Canadian company that makes wireless electrical demand management. And when they were developing this, they looked at swarm intelligence. They looked at the behavior of bees because they wanted to find a way to get mechanical equipment on different levels of a building or even across a campus to talk to each other. In fact, this technology that allows mechanical equipment to interact is already in use in buildings. It's not quite at the level that George described, where we're literally hooked into a smart grid, but we're pretty far down this line. It just hasn't been widely adopted yet. We not only have the technology, we understand that we have to monitor it in order to make good use of the data. So until we're at that stage where there's this automatic response that tells the building owner, okay, scale back, we just need to get to a stage where we actually know what we're using and when we use it and why we use more of it at certain times. So this comes back to operations and occupant behavior. We have to keep occupants in the picture from a technology perspective. They're the wild card.